Welcome to The Why. In our podcast, The Why, we're going to cover topics that are important to SAP customers and to our team. We want you to share this information internally. We want you to share this information outside of SAP Ariba. And we want you to be able to connect with other thought leaders in our business. This week, our podcast, The Why, is at SAP Ariba Live in Las Vegas, which is the place to be to learn about business-to-business commerce. Joining me today on our podcast is Aaron McVeigh, Vice President from Verisk Maplecroft. Thank you for joining me today, Aaron.
Thank you for having us.
And Tony Harris. Tony is the General Manager of Supplier Management Solutions for SAP Ariba. Tony, thank you for joining me today.
My pleasure, John.
Aaron, we're going to start with you. Tell us a little bit about Verisk Maplecroft and exactly the solutions you offer in the marketplace.
More than happy to. So Verisk Maplecroft is a global risk analytics firm. So what does that mean? At our core, we are a data curator, aggregator of information, and help companies to utilize and analyze the information that we make available to them. So when we think about risk data, we think about it across four key pillars. So we start at the highest level, thinking about issues related to political risk, environmental risk, economic, and social risk. We cover over 155 risk issues across 198 countries. For some risk issues, we're able to get down to the subnational level. So if we're looking at something like air quality or climate change, we're looking at it in a radius of 2 square kilometers.
Wow.
So it's a really impactful
Excellent.
insight into your overall potential for risk. So it's really helping companies to begin to understand where risk exposure lies. It could be within their supply chain, it could be within their enterprise, it could be within new market entry.
Right.
So the possibilities for utilization of the data are endless. And one of the things that we really find valuable is that it's a trusted and reliable source of data that can be utilized across the company to answer different risk questions. But when you use one central foundation of data,
Right.
it really makes it something that's embraced by the company and throughout the culture.
That makes sense. Tony, I think the partnership that we have with Verisk Maplecroft, you're certainly behind that. Tell us a little bit about why this partnership was exciting to you and sort of how it came about.
Sure, John. So, first of all, Verisk Maplecroft are really well known in the industry, and Aaron's just done a great job of explaining the kind of broad set of capabilities they offer. So that was the first important factor for us. We want to be working with other partner organizations that our customers recognize.
Sure.
Secondly, to that point, we do have a number of common customers across our two businesses, and so
Already today, huh?
Already today. So, we had these customers on the one hand, would have an SAP Ariba customer saying to us, hey, we really want you guys to work with Verisk Maplecroft. We're
Right.
a user of their data. Please bring it into the supplier risk solution. And then likewise, I'm sure Aaron will agree, they had their customers coming to them and saying, hey, we're a user of SAP Ariba supplier risk. We'd really like you to work with Ariba
Right.
so that we can get our subscribed data from you guys into the Ariba solution. So that's a nice situation to be in. I think thirdly, as you just heard, they've got a very broad set of data and risk insights across
Sure.
A wide range of risk categories. And that is particularly appealing to us because, we want to be working with organizations that can give us as wide a set of risk insights as possible. That's
Sure.
ultimately what we're doing in our supplier risk solution. We're trying to provide, that high level view across all risk categories as to what the supplier exposure is. And so particularly around the ESG area, that's our initial point of focus with this
Right.
partnership with Verisk Maplecroft data in that respect and their risk insights around ESG.
Yep.
We're going to be able to pull that data into SAP Ariba supplier risk.
Right.
That helps our customers focus on the suppliers based upon, for example, the country and the industry as to where there could be a degree of risk exposure. Now you combine that with the other risk data that we already provide within our solution,
Sure.
and that really allows them to get down to a specific supplier level as to where there could be potential issues they're going to go address with a further deep dive analysis.
No, that makes a lot of sense. So you talked about sort of where our partnership was starting. You obviously have a lot of information, right? A lot of different sources. What advice do you have for customers, beginning to try to look at risk? There's so many different dimensions, to it. Where do customers normally start, or how do you advise them to get started at looking at this?
Yeah, it's often an interesting conversation because where we stand today in kind of the operating environment is that there are leaders and there's a lot of guidance available about best practices when it comes to risk assessment. So
Okay.
you have information related from specifically around sustainability factors
Sure.
that the OECD is recommending to industries and sectors. So it might be the apparel sector or the oil and gas and extractive sector.
Right.
But these are the particular areas of focus. So that helps us to isolate it down.
Yep.
But oftentimes it really takes working together, at the executive level, because understanding what their core initiatives are, what the focus is, we've talked a lot about purpose this past week. And so understanding is what's driving your purpose as a company, because what you want to do is ensure that that vision is followed throughout your supply chain.
Right.
So we generally work with them. We'll review their documentation.
Sure.
So we'll review their supplier code of conduct. We might
Okay.
even draft their supplier code of
I was
conduct.
going to say, if they don't have one, you help them get started
If
with
they
one?
don't have one, then we will write
Right.
it for them, and then we'll recommend what risk issues they should be looking at. So when we worked together to develop the solution specifically that we're kicking off within the SAP Ariba
Right.
supplier risk solution, what we did is we started with the UN SDGs.
Yep.
So companies' initiatives to adapt and follow the Sustainable Development Goals. Many
Perfect.
companies don't really understand or have the data available to them to figure out how they align with the strategy. So we're taking that complexity out of it by having assessed what those risk issues are, aligning the indices for them, and allowing them to adopt them as a first case step.
Fantastic. You mentioned to me before that the data you have is only as good as the people.
Yes.
And it sounds like the people that you have, at the organization and what you put together is a key differentiator. Can you expand a little bit for us on that?
Yeah, so we're really lucky. Across the board, we have over 80 research analysts and data scientists working for Verisk Maplecroft, and they come with a background of thematic, country, or industry expertise. I would say about 80% of our staff has a PhD in the particular risk that they're studying. And so what it allows us to do is, a lot of this data, of course, is pulled at a mass scale from social media, from events, from information that's publicly available or privately sourced. But to be able to discern that information, to create methodologies that make it easy to use and digestible for customers,
Right.
That's really where the power of our data comes out. That's where customers can trust the data source. Sometimes we'll hear from companies, well, I could just go out and sort of look at ILO for child labor at source.
Right.
I can go out and I can pull flood data from over here. But having a team of experts on hand that can really bring that together and make actionable intelligence out of the data,
Right.
now that's a true challenge. And so I really think that it's the people that we have that are developing these methodologies, that are curating the data,
Right.
is really what brings the power to it.
Fantastic. Tony, you're obviously talking to our customers, right, about some of the problems and challenges and talking about our risk solutions. What's the feedback so far as where we're going with the solution? What are customers telling you?
Oh, it's overwhelmingly positive. It makes me so happy. I've got to be honest there.
So this is a good week for you.
This
then.
is a really good week. I mean, look, we're being talked about on main stage. Purpose as a theme is being discussed everywhere now. And the beautiful thing is within our products portfolio,
Right.
The SAP Ariba Supplier Risk Solution is really the foundation for purpose. Everything we're doing around purpose starts within the supplier risk solution, and ultimately we will be feeding the other modules within our portfolio with this risk and purpose information.
Right.
Again, the overwhelming feedback from customers is they love the products as it is
Sure.
today. Acknowledgement and confirmation that it's already evolved to a very advanced level. But secondly, and just as importantly, if not more importantly, they're agreeing that the strategy we've put in place here by partnering with organizations like Verisk Maplecroft, building a series of APIs so that, yes, we provide a stack of data out of the box in our solution and risk
Right.
insights, but as you go around the world and you work with organizations in different countries and different industries, they have different needs, different types of data and risk insights.
Right.
And so the strategy of building these APIs and being able to pull in different types of content and risk insights is resonating very, very well.
That's fantastic. You mentioned global, and then wanted to sort of ask that question. Do you see different risk trends globally? Asia different from North America, different from, Africa, or, global companies are buying around the world anyway?
Yeah.
Right. So they're addressing all of these needs because their supply chain stretches across the globe.
I would say that in relationship to companies that are focusing on sustainability risk, those risk issues are pretty uniform across the board. Those initiatives that they're adopting, one might focus more strongly on environmental issues versus social issues and vice versa. But we also still, I think to Tony's point, is that there are companies who are still looking at risk from a financial lens. They're looking at risk. Some companies are only concerned with cyber risk.
Right.
And so what we want to be able to do is really offer a solution across the board that allows companies to aggregate all of that risk data to drive business processes internally. So one of the struggles that companies are facing, one is that they're global, one is that they have multitudes of ERP systems. I was talking to a company who has 20 SAP implementations globally. Just aggregation of that data is a huge challenge, and one of the benefits of moving to the cloud, of course. But so what's really, important for them is to start to eliminate those silos so that the security team has the same access to data that the compliance team has, that the corporate social responsibility and the ethical sourcing team has. And I think that's really the true value add, and that's where the excitement is coming from, because it's a game changer.
Fantastic.
Yeah, no, I was going to say, I agree. Depending on the industry the customer's in, of course, they might have more of a focus on forced labor, for example, than others,
topics,
due to the nature of what they manufacture and sell. But I think absolutely, Erin's spot on. There are still many organizations out there that still look at risk as we've got to do the financial due diligence on the supplier and maybe ensure they're not on any sanctions lists or watch lists. What I do see, particularly in Europe, I'm from Europe, but in Europe, I guess we've probably had an earlier start on this, is the ESG risk, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And that's largely been driven through regulation that we've had in place for a while. Now, the beautiful thing is what we do see, particularly in Europe and some of the more forward-thinking companies now in the US, it's not just about risk, it's about the opportunity. Where there is risk, there's opportunity, and that's where we now kind of start to pivot.
What do you do about it?
The
exactly.
purpose message. Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, what should we expect from this partnership this year? I know today, you said this week was an exciting week. I would say we've been working together for a little while. But what does the rest of the year look like between Verisk Maplecroft and SAP Ariba?
Yeah, so we've announced the partnership today, and the product teams are hard at work already in terms of designing how this integration is going to work.
Right.
We've anticipated that we should have this solution, the integrated solution, out in the market around the Q3 timeframe.
All right.
So in the meantime, we're working with a range of design partner customers to ensure that what we think we want to build here is exactly what they're looking for. So I'm sure in a short space of time you're going to see some early mock-ups that we're starting to able to share with some of these customers. And
will we see you at Ariba Live in Europe?
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah, fantastic. I look forward to catching up then in the latter half of this year and see how it's going.
Right.
Thank you.
Yeah, Erin, Tony, thank you for joining us this week on The Why.
Great, it was a pleasure.
Thanks. Bye now.
Our podcast, The Why, is put together by the People First team. We'll be producing The Why on a regular basis. If you have recommendations for topics, please contact the People First team. And please share this podcast with other members of our team or even outside our team. Thank you for listening to The Why.